Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome, SBI Podcast listeners and video podcast viewers. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping you make your number. And this is the weekly SBI podcast, and its purpose is to help you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they make theirs. Today's guest is Paul Loftus, and he is the Vice President of Sales and Revenue Retention at the Tax and Accounting Division of Wolters Kluwer, leading a team of 400 sales associates for the global information services provider. In his role, he is responsible for setting and executing the revenue acquisition and retention strategy. And prior to this role, Paul spent 16 years in a variety of sales leadership positions at ADP, one of our country's great B2B sales organizations. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Okay, today's topic is executing a sales transformation. What is a sales transformation? Well, a sales transformation is a complete overhaul of a company's sales capabilities. It usually involves new budgets, a new sales process and methodology, a new organizational model, typically including new sales channels, new talent profiles, requiring a need to recruit and develop a new team, a redesign of territories, quotas, and God help us, compensation plans. And sometimes a complete retooling of key support functions, such as sales ops and enablement, and a new technology infrastructure to support the sales force. So it's quite a lot of work. Now, what causes the need for a sales transformation? It's usually two stimulants. First, the CEO takes the company in an entirely new direction, requiring a sales transformation. For instance, let's say the CEO decides he wants to enter a new market, and it's filled with new potential customers and new competitors. This would drive the need for a sales transformation. The second driver we commonly see of a sales transformation is sales results are so poor, the CEO decides to hit the reset button, recruit a new sales leader in, and start over. Paul's on the show today because he has made a career executing sales transformations. And if you're trying to do one, you can learn a lot from his experience. All right, so we're going to use a section of SBI's 5-step sales strategy methodology to guide our conversation. And this can be found on pages 155 and 194 of our playbook titled How to Make Your Number in 2016. If you want to follow along at home, download a copy of our methodology at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. All right, enough of the setup. Are we ready to go?
We're ready.
All right. So I would ask you to pick an example of a sales transformation you have led in the past and give the audience some context. So when I start asking you questions, we kind of have a use case.
Great. Well, I think one thing to remember, Greg, and what you said as a lead-in is very important. You know, I've made my career on raising my hand for the jobs that maybe weren't the most attractive in my past, and so most of my steps in my career were transformation. And so when I think back on the different teams and the different divisions, and most recently the largest transformation that I've been a part of is here at Wolters Kluwer, it really has to do with what you mentioned. Our business and our customers have truly evolved. And things have really changed within our market. If you look at our business, we were not too long ago primarily a publishing organization. We are now primarily a software and a SaaS-based delivery of technology. And so when you make that type of change, everything needs to change. And when you think about what is necessary to change from a sales and a go-to-market strategy, well, it really focuses on three major areas: talent, process, and messaging. Do you have the right people in place? Do you have the right processes in place? And are you delivering the message that resonates with the marketplace? And so when I look at our most recent transformation here at Wolters Kluwer, it did exactly what you said. We had a new CEO running the business who had realized that our customers were asking for a different way to approach them. And internally, we were not operating as functional as we felt we could to deliver on the go-to-market strategy that we wanted to. So, if you look at the most recent, this has been a definitely a learning experience for all involved, but a very rewarding experience at that.
Yep. All right, so I think I understand what caused it. So you have a new CEO, your buyers changed, you moved from a publishing company to a software company. I mean, those are some pretty radical shifts, so it makes sense that you're going through a sales transformation right now. When did it start, and how far along into the journey are you?
So it started, I actually left ADP and came to Wolters Kluwer in February of 13. So we spent all of 14 and all of 15 doing this transformation. It has been when we look at overall talent, we had some really good existing talent in the business, and I think that's going to be an important thing that we'll talk about, Greg, is, you never want to look at a transformation and say, this is a complete overhaul. Very rare do you see complete overhauls in sales and sales transformations. I think you have to identify what is working and identify what are areas that you can improve or even enhance. And that's where we need to spend our most amount of time. So over the last better part of 3 years, we have been focused on this 3-year transformation and now starting to see the results of, the fruits of our labor, if you will.
All right, so let's talk about that, the results. So 3 years, that's a good time horizon. Many times I see new CEOs get hired, they recruit in a new sales leader like yourself, they give them a mandate for change for all the reasons we just discussed, but they have no patience. Right, so when I hear 3 years, I want to call your CEO and thank him for not being a knucklehead. I mean, these things take some time, especially in a company like yours. It's been around for a long time, is very mature, et cetera, et cetera. So when you were interviewing for the job, did you make sure that they were going to give you enough runway? I mean, how do you handle that?
Well, first thing I'll share with you is you'd be thanking her.
Sorry.
When Karen Abramson, our global CEO, hired me for the job, she, if I look back, the one thing I probably underestimated was the time it was going to take to truly make this transformation. As any CEO, that they always want things sooner, right? That makes absolute sense. We have talked, and I think one of the key elements is communication. I've had full support from the top down of this organization from day one. Putting in the right people, bringing the right people up to different roles, changing the talent, changing the process, implementing a new CRM. The investment has been made from day one with technology enhancements. So I couldn't think of a better situation, but I would urge everyone to make sure that when you embark upon something this large, you have to make sure that you're absolutely aligned with the highest level of management in your organization. And both Karen and Teresa, my two bosses, are people that understood what was in front of us, understood that the business needed to evolve, and fully supported both financially and fully supported me in my efforts the entire way.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, you're very fortunate. You really are, and it sounds like you recognize that.
Absolutely.
So you're three years in. I mean, to the extent that you can talk about it, give me some kind of before and after results if you have any.
Yeah, I think what really is important is to think about this organization. It's the CCH portion of our business, which is our North American tax and accounting division, is really 100-plus-year-old business. And if you think about a 100-plus-year-old business, you may think, hard to move things forward, lots of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy to it. That's really not who we are at all. We're actually a very nimble in a very agile organization because of this transformation of going from heavy publishing to software. And so when I think about when we started, we had a large sales force with not a whole lot of infrastructure. So sales operations wasn't necessarily something that was completely understood, and the importance of someone managing the technology and the importance of CRM and a discipline around that, consistency across all the sales groupings, right? So the whole sales enterprise being viewed as one. There was a lot of autonomy in the different sales groups because our portfolio is fairly diverse. So it really is, when you look at the before picture, you really look at, we've obviously changed a little bit the hiring profile. We've evolved from a messaging perspective, and we put in the technology, the process, and the procedures that were necessary for us to kind of operate in a sustainable format or for the future.
Right. And I'm assuming, since you're still there and it's 3 years later, that the financial objectives are being met?
We are meeting our financial objectives. I will tell you that I knock on wood as we do. The fourth quarter is a critical time for us. We are off to the right start in this month. And we have a tremendous amount of our year still ahead of us, with only 2.5 months remaining. But I will tell you that we see a tremendous amount of momentum. I am extremely excited to see the amount of talent that we've brought in, really joining hands with the existing veteran team that we had in place, the really successful ones that wanted to evolve and wanted to change with the business. The thing that I think is really, I'm extremely lucky and was a critical part of my decision to come to Wolters Kluwer, is we have an extremely loyal customer base. And they are people that are very interested in helping us help them drive their business. I told you I spent 16 years at ADP, and that was the business behind the business. This is really, when you're talking about tax software operating in a professional firm or operating in a organization, a large, Fortune 500 company, it's critical for them to have these software working in a format and a fashion that is perfect for them. And so it comes with a lot of responsibility, but the talent that we have here has really stepped up and embraced the change and the evolution of our business to be sustainable for the future.
Okay, fantastic. Great stuff. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away, because when we come back, I'm going to ask Paul to discuss the specific steps he took that led to his success. So stick around after the break.
Making your number is hard. Your problems are complex. Complex problems need complex solutions. Introducing the SBI Magazine. Read in-depth stories written by award-winning journalists about how your peers have overcome their problems to make the numbers. When you need more than a tweet, social post, or blog article, turn to the SBI Magazine. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com to subscribe.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI. And my guest today is Paul Loftus, the Vice President of Sales and Revenue Retention at Wolters Kluwer. Today we are discussing how to pull off a sales transformation, and we're using SBI's 5-step sales strategy methodology to do it. Specifically, pages 155 to 194 of our workbook titled How to Make Your Number in 2016. Before the break, Paul shared with us an example of his sales transformation, the one he's going through right now, what caused the need for it in the first place, the objectives of the transformation, and the results. And all systems go right now, which is fantastic. During this segment, we're going to hear from Paul how he did it. Okay, so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. So, Paul, bear with me. I'm going to ask you some really tactical questions, but the audience is dying to hear the answers to these. So, first up, did you change the sales process and the sales methodology?
I would tell you that I don't think we changed it. I think we tweaked it. Our sales process was not very clear and a little bit undefined. We needed to make that very, very clear and consistent across the board. As you know, Greg, you have to speak the same language when you're talking about sales, when you're talking about sales support, even when you're talking about product development and all the other parts of the business. So I was very clear in the communication of using a standard sales process that we all can work from. Again, aligning the CRM. We implemented Salesforce.com shortly after I came on, and it has been a huge success, mainly because we stuck with a process and a procedure that we were following. So the internal was definitely something that we needed to create consistency and we did that from tweaking it.
Okay.
The external, I think, is something that we are still evolving, but absolutely is something that we've addressed.
Okay. And just for clarification, when you say internal, so it's the process that get hardwired into the tool and everybody's using it, we've been up the learning curve and you're getting some consistent, standardized use of that. And when you say external, you mean in terms of how you actually engage with the customers?
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Very good. All right, next question. Did you make any changes to the organizational model? And if so, why?
We did. Primarily, most of the early change came from our customers. We listened to them. We got out in the field and we heard that our model of having multiple salespeople carrying multiple bags, right? So, having that really product-centric sales force was not what our customer wanted. It was no longer the way they wanted to buy. They wanted one person from our organization that was able to speak on all of our products and services and then bring in a subject matter expert. Very similar to a model I grew up with in ADP, and it was a model that we had to change for, primarily based on listening to our customer.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, next question. Did you launch any new sales channels? Things like maybe inside sales or global accounts or a partner team, something like that? And if so, how come?
Absolutely. We launched Inside Sales. We also launched an alliance partnership program, which is something that we are still in the process of evolving. But our inside sales team, I'm extremely proud of. This was the down market, really the market that I call that seeds the large firms. People who have been at a large firm in the past and have spun off still want to utilize our software, but are in a capacity of 2 or 3 associates that they are working with in kind of a startup. Those are people that needed some really a heavy amount of expertise and needed a high touch, but obviously did not. The coverage is tough. It's tough to make the numbers work when you're talking about some of the small markets. So we launched an inside sales force to really focus on that market. We've had great success in the launch, and also on the other side of our portfolio, which is kind of the sales and use tax side of our business, we have a great alliance group that we've built. And it continues to flourish.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, right down the list. I'm doing my little checklist here, and you're nailing every one of them. All right, next up, did the talent profile change, and did you have to swap out the entire team, or was it some type of augmentation of new people and old people?
I think the talent profile changed a bit. I think what our customers were used to buying was in a model of feature advantage benefit. And a selling model, and I think what we've evolved to is really insight and bringing insight to our customer base to really solve critical business issues. As you can imagine, the folks that sell feature advantage benefit, many of us, and I was one of them, I kind of date myself here, but my first training was about feature advantage benefit, right? Now, Greg, as you well know, when someone wants to know feature advantage benefit, where do they go? They go to Google. Yep. They go to, they search that, and they get all that information before a salesperson is even engaged. So what I was looking for was really good, strong, business acumen-driven salespeople. And we evolved from someone who really knew the accounting world and really knew the workflow to someone who is a business person that was going to challenge the status quo of a business and really be a person that can drive or even provoke someone to make a change. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, Greg, most of our business is business that we are unhooking from our competitive situations. Yep. And so we need to know our competitive software, and we also need to know what would provoke a business to change. And we're really focusing on those critical business issues that will drive change within a firm that will help them sustain or drive the desired growth that they're after.
Yeah. I mean, listening to your story, I'm almost embarrassed I asked a question about the talent profile. I mean, you had to change the talent profile. You wouldn't have been able to go replace your competitors with your solution. All right.
You're exactly right.
Let's move to the next one. Changes to territories and quotas and compensation. Did you have to rework that entire stack?
We did. We did, because as you well know, when you change the direction of an organization, you obviously are changing some focal points. Mm-hmm. And what was important yesterday might not be as important today. And so it was critical that I sat with Karen Abramson and Teresa McIntosh, our CEOs, and really understood fully what the go-to-market strategy should be, what we're after as a business, and what was going to capture the most amount of market share. So we created the vital few for the sales organization, which is attack market share, grow share of wallet, and then creating a culture to be easier to do business with and for. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is we 100-plus-year-old business, things can get, you can make sure that there's things that you can improve upon, and that's really what we're focused on, the time thieves of a salesperson.
Interesting. Okay. Sounds like you got a great partnership with your CEOs, which is a big part of executing a sales transformation. Let me ask you one more tactical question. Let's talk about things in terms of sales support. So classic sales ops, sales enablement. You spoke a little bit about technology tools. It sounds like maybe that those weren't core strengths of the company when you came in and you put them in place. So give the audience a feel for what your approach was as it relates to sales ops and sales enablement.
Well, as you well know, you don't have to look too far into my resume or my history to know that I grew up in an organization that put a huge emphasis on sales operations and really focusing on the productivity of a salesperson. And so I believe that that's inherent in me, and I believe that that's one of the main roles of my job. I stood up on stage when 45 days into my tenure here at Wolters Kluwer, and I said one of my major roles is to take the time thieves, to take the obstacles out of your way so you can sell more. And that's something that I think we just had to put a focus on. And I have arguably the strongest sales operations group I have ever been a part of.
Wow.
This is a group that has been created by one person. He built a team that understands technology, understands enablement, understands learning. And I'm really proud of the group and what they've done. I can tell you that when you implement a CRM, that's a big process. When you implement a discipline to a CRM, that's a big process. But then when you implement CPQ and all of the back-end automation as well, all in a 2.5-year time frame, that's almost unheard of. They've done it very, very successfully, under budget, on time.
Yeah, no question. And for the audience, CPQ stands for Configure Price Quote, in case you didn't know that. So I got to tell you, I really appreciate you answering these questions. At this point, hopefully the audience is getting a sense for the complexity associated with the sales transformation. I mean, we just went very quickly through some giant topics: opening up new sales channels, understanding new buying behavior, reorging the sales team, revamping territories, quota, comp. I mean, all of these things and the other things that we just talked about. I mean, we could dedicate entire shows just to those topics. So the complexity of this is incredible. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back for our third and final segment with Paul, I'm going to ask him to tell you where the landmines are and how to avoid stepping on them when you're trying to execute a sales transformation. So come back right after the break.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI. And my guest today is Paul Loftus, the Vice President of Sales and Revenue Retention at Wolters Kluwer. Today we are discussing how to execute a sales transformation. We're using SBI's 5-step sales strategy methodology to do it. Pages 155 to 194 of our playbook titled How to Make Your Number in 2016, if you want to follow along at home. Before the break, Paul and I discussed the details of how he personally transforms sales teams. During this segment, we're going to hear from Paul where the landmines are buried and how to avoid stepping on them. So, Paul, what are the big mistakes you made as you attempted this sales transformation?
Well, I can tell you that I've made plenty. I think the key element there is identifying and quickly raising your hand when you've made a mistake. I had made some compensation mistakes, maybe flexed too far to align to the transformation when it created more disruption than necessary. I may have been too stern or too strict on a decision on territories and whatnot. But I'll tell you, Greg, one of the things that I've learned, and it is really humbling to be a part of an organization that has allowed so much change to happen, but also to embrace it. And one of the things I've learned is never stop listening. You have to continue to listen to the field, finding different ways, whether it's, a revenue advisory board that we implemented, or it's, a 411 help desk that we've created. It doesn't matter. You have to listen to the field because they're going to tell you where you're doing well, where it's working, and then also where it's not. So I've made plenty of mistakes, and that's one thing I'll be the first to admit. But one of the things I'm very proud of is how quickly we've corrected them, and how quickly we've redirected and realigned to be able to correct those mistakes.
So I love the answer. So audience, here's the answer. You're going to step on the landmines. Just what do you do when you do? I mean, how do you react? How do you correct them? And how do you listen? Sometimes I've seen sales leaders who can be very dominant in their approach, be very forceful, and things don't go exactly according to plan, and not be as flexible as they need to be. So listen to Paul's very mature and self-aware approach to this, and you can avoid making that somewhat rookie mistake. Sometimes you don't have all the answers. I mean, really listen.
And Greg, I think it's important. I appreciate you saying that, and I take that as the highest level of compliment. But what I will tell you is that when it's hard to decipher between what's noise as related to moving the cheese, right, and what's noise as related to you actually made a mistake, right? You have to and I think that there's only one way you can do that is by focusing on talent, surrounding yourself with really smart people that are not afraid to give you very direct feedback, tell you when you're wrong, and I've done that, and I think continuing to listen to those people are really, the core to our success.
Yeah. Well, that's why you make the big bucks, right?
Well, I don't know about that.
Separate noise from signal. So, all right, let me move to my next question. Paul, if you were hired tomorrow to transform a sales team, what would you do differently in 2016 than, say, you did when you started this journey in 2013?
Gosh, that's a tough question. I'm really proud of the progress and what we've done. There were many times where there's blood, sweat, and tears on the field. Make no mistake. I could have moved maybe quicker in some of the areas when I think about hiring, when I think about assembling my senior staff. But I really look back right now and I say, the key from keeping us out of a big load of problems was listening, as I said earlier. And so, if I look at some of the areas, I think, some comp plan changes, I probably could have evolved quicker with some of my comp plan. I think in 16, I'm going to, continue to tweak the comp plans to really align with the core strategy of the business. I may have missed some of that in the past. So those are things that I could look at and say, where I can improve. I also think that our training and our learning and enablement portion of the business is an area that we're putting a heavy focus on right now. I think we probably could have done a better job of really looking at what are there areas that will help our people get to productivity faster. I think we've made progress, but I would like to see that faster, and I think that ultimately leads to back to when we talk about a CEO who says you need to move faster. All CEOs say that. You need to get to that transformation. You need to get to the results faster. I think getting people productive faster is really an area that I'm still learning, and I've always opened ideas if there are people that know how to do that and do that better than I.
Yeah. Okay. In your opinion, what are the biggest risks associated with a sales transformation, and do you have any advice for the audience on how to mitigate these risks?
I think there's a lot of risk when you talk about a transformation. You have to have thick skin. As a leader, you realize if you are going to change a lot of people's process, they're not going to be happy. There's very important that you show them, why and fully are transparent about the decisions that you're making, and realizing that some of them involve people, some of them involve, moving a lot of process around. So I think if I think about, as you embark upon a transformation, absolutely need to be aligned at the highest level. And you have to set proper expectations about how long it will take. So because this wasn't my first, kind of transformation, I was able to say, listen, here's how this is going to work. We're going to make some changes at the beginning. We're going to see some success, but don't get too excited about that success, because we're probably going to take a few steps backwards before we take giant steps forwards. And you know what? True to form, it absolutely was the exact same process.
Yeah.
And it got people excited, and I couched that with, hey, be careful, let's not get too excited. We're going to take steps back. We have to, because we're going to take huge leaps forward. And right now, the last few months, we're starting to see those huge leaps forward. And I'm just really, if you can't tell it in my voice, Greg, I'm extremely proud and excited of the team and what they've done and what the future holds for us.
Well, you should be. I mean, you really have changed quite a bit. All right, we're going to take one last break. When we come back, Paul and I will discuss an action plan to put all this great advice to work for you. So stick around after the break.
Do you have too many things to do and not enough time to do them? Is finding time to learn best practices almost impossible? The SBI Podcast is your solution. Turn time spent exercising, commuting, and traveling into productive learning time with a subscription to the SBI Podcast. SBI Podcast listeners get unique insight into real-world sales and marketing issues through interviews with your industry peers every week. Find us on iTunes by searching for Sales Benchmark Index Podcast and subscribe today.
Welcome back, everyone. Paul, we're going to put a little bow on this for everybody. If you were here and the audience was in front of you and you were going to speak directly to them, what are the 1 to 3 things our audience should do to successfully execute a sales transformation if they find themselves in a position where they need to?
Don't come off course. There's 3 areas that you put focus on, and you need to understand what those are. And they may vary a little bit based on the need for the transformation or why the transformation is occurring in an organization. But what I've seen to be very consistent in every sales transformation I've been a part of is focus on 3 areas and don't come off course. Continue to communicate. Talent, process, and messaging. Communicate up, communicate side to side, and communicate down. You can make mistakes. You don't have to be, a person that is making only the right decisions. Listen to your people, listen to the business, listen to your customers. If you do those 3 things, those talent, process, messaging, you listen and you communicate, I think you're going to find yourself in a very successful transformation process.
Awesome. Okay. So what does all this mean to you, the audience? Here's my 2 cents. Sales transformations are hard. Many companies that try them fail. There is a right way and a wrong way to do this. Don't make the mistake of thinking this is easy, and for heaven's sake, do not attempt one without professional assistance. The stakes are too high to wing it. Would you prepare and file your company's taxes without the help of an accounting firm? Of course not. So don't try to transform your sales team without hiring somebody like Paul or potentially a firm like SBI or the other great firms that are in our industry. If you want to make sure you get this right, get a copy of this year's research report called How to Make Your Number in 2016. You can get it at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. If you feel you might need some help, you can have one of our experts lead you through a workshop which details how to do this. And go to the same URL, salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-workshop, and request one of our team members to come see you. Paul, on behalf of the now 100,000 plus SBI audience, thanks for letting me interview you. You've made a big contribution back to our field, and we all benefited greatly from it.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it.
I also want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in. This show has become very popular, and with this popularity comes great guests like the one we had today. For example, The way that Paul and I got to know each other as he listened to an episode of the show where we had Hewlett-Packard come on and discuss how they got more selling time across 10,000 sales reps, and he shot me a note and said, hey, that was really good. We started a dialogue. I learned a little bit about him, and I said, hey, why don't you come on the show? That's how it works. That's what benchmarking is about. It's about peers talking to peers and sharing best practices. So I really want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in, and I wish you much success as you try and make your number. Take care.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.